Howdy guys, welcome back to BRG Photography. This is Ben, and if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I have an affinity for Affinity Photo. But there's one thing I don't use Affinity Photo for, and that is processing my raw images. So in this video, I want to explain why I don't use Affinity Photo to process my raw pictures and what I do use instead. So with all that out the way, let's just go ahead and jump right in. Alright guys, welcome back. So for as much as I love Affinity Photo, why don't I use it to process my raw images? Well, the main reason is going to be batch processing. So when I come back from a photo shoot, let's say I do a studio portrait session, I can come back with anywhere between 200 or 300 photos. Or if I shoot some live event, I can easily come back with 1,000 photos or more. And I need to be able to go through all those photos, quickly delete the ones I don't need, favorite the ones that I like, maybe apply a global crop to all of them, maybe apply some other kind of adjustments like a white balance correction or exposure correction. Then I need to be able to export all those photos, sometimes in different sizes. And these are all things that you can't do in Affinity Photo. Now, of course, you can do these things individually in Affinity Photo, but you have to do them on a photo by photo basis. If you wanted to apply a white balance correction to 400 photos, you're not going to be able to do that in Affinity Photo. So what do I use to process all my raw images? For me, I use Capture One. Capture One allows me to do all those things and more to multiple photos at once. So if I need to apply an exposure correction to 400 images, I can do that all in Capture One super quick. And I know I've talked about Capture One in some of my other videos. So in this video, I just want to give you a brief overview of my workflow. Also, this is not going to be a Capture One tutorial by any means. Again, just a brief overview of how I get my raw images, turn them into JPEGs, and then open those up into Affinity Photo where I can actually begin my editing. So with all that being said, why don't we just go ahead and open up Capture One and see how it all works. All right, so here we are in Capture One. And one thing I didn't mention is that I always, or at least I always try to shoot tethered. So I have Capture One installed on a MacBook, and I bring that computer with me to my photo shoot. So that way, when I take a picture, the image pops up immediately on my computer, which is great just because it's a bigger screen for me to look at. It's easy for the model to see. She gets instant feedback on the photo that was just taken, and it saves time because you're not having to stop and pause and get up and maybe show the model the back of the camera. So whenever I can, I always try to shoot tethered. And that way I bring my computer home, I put it off onto a little external hard drive, put it in my Mac at home, and I'm ready to go. So right here we have a studio session I did recently with a young actress out here in Tokyo. And you can see here we took 376 pictures. All right, so the first thing I like to do when I start going through my raw images is first start deleting the ones I know that I'm not going to need. You can see here's a few test shots. I'm testing the backlighting and stuff like that. And so usually I'll just kind of get to where I figure maybe these were where we started. I think I'm still testing. I can see the white balance changing, and I can see the modifier changes here, which is probably why the white balance changed. But I'm gonna go and delete these. I think from about here. I think here is where we started, where I was set. I was okay, lighting set. Exposure's good. Now we begin. All right, so once I've done that, I'm gonna just basically go through every photo and just start deleting the ones that I know I'm not going to use. Now, before we get started, the one thing you might notice is the crop on this image is a bit weird. And that's because, so digital SLRs have an aspect ratio of 3:2, I believe. And what I like to do, because I know most of my work's gonna be shown on social media or Instagram, Instagram currently has a crop size of 4:5. And so this is too tall. If you were to crop this, or if you were to put this into Instagram, you're gonna have to cut something off. And so I kind of crop in camera knowing this is gonna be cropped later. And so what I can do, go to my crop tool here. I already have a preset called Instagram Tall 4:5. And I can just bring that down. And that's my crop, which I know will fit Instagram perfectly. It'll also be useful for a lot of other social media and things like that. So the cool thing is because I have this one image cropped, I can go ahead and select all the images, right click here. Oops, let's go back to my crop tool first. Right click and I'm going to copy this crop to all of my pictures, and boom, all my pictures are cropped and ready to go. And I have guides in my camera that kind of show me where I need to crop. So that's why I purposely have a lot of this extra space up here. Now I know I'm kind of losing resolution because I'm kind of cropping off a lot, but you know, it's fine. The camera megapixels is more than enough, and it's more than enough detail to look good, especially for like social media or Instagram or the internet or YouTube or whatever. Okay, so once I have all my crops set, then this is where again, I'm gonna go through and just start going through the images that I don't need. And it's a slow process. You just kind of go through one by one. And one thing that's really helpful, for example, like these 3 images are very similar. So I might just select them here. You know, so I might look at these and say, okay, out of these 3, do I really need to keep all 3 of them? I think like, especially the one in the middle and the right are very similar. I'll say the one on the left is the weakest. So I'm gonna go and just delete that one. And then if I wanted to, I could look at these 2 and say, I guess they're both okay, but I think I prefer the one on the right. So maybe I just won't keep this because, you know, I don't want to send her, you know, 300 images where, you know, a majority of them are just slightly different. I'll try to pick the best one to deliver to the end client. And so I'll just sit there and go through all of these. And maybe this one, I think it's not really a headshot because she's looking off, so I might delete that. But there's some that I might keep. For example, I think there was one where she's kind of like this one. This one was just kind of for fun. This is not really a headshot, but you know, she might like it because I could see her maybe using it for a story post on Instagram or something just for fun. So I'll end up keeping these kind of images. But if I come across images that are very similar, or you know, her eyes are closed or the flash didn't fire that shot for whatever reason, or I missed focus, yeah, I'm going to get rid of those. So I would basically just go through all of these pictures here and just start like deleting. And while I'm doing this, sometimes I might, if I come across a photo that I really, really like, let's say, oh, I really like this photo, great smile, I might go ahead and star it as a reminder to myself. I'll press 1 on my keyboard and you'll see a little star mark here. And that allows me to start favoriting the ones that I like. Let's say, for example, I also like this one. And let's say like I like that one. And now I can come over here and just filter just those 1-starred images. And then I can further and filter down. Maybe out of these 3, I might look which is the best. I might say, okay, this one's really nice. This is a good headshot. I'm going to put a 2-star on that one. And now I have something that has a 2-star rating. And this is really helpful because it just allows me to quickly narrow down my favorite pics. Now, normally what happens is I'm going to send this to her. She's going to give me her favorite pics, which then I will go in and bring into Affinity Photo and retouch. But let's go ahead and go back to all of our images. Okay, so once I got my crop, once I've gone through all the images and deleted the ones I don't need, then what I'm going to do is batch rename them, because I want to rename them to something that's a bit easier than whatever this is, the date with, you know, BRG543, whatever the camera gave the file name. I want to make the files easier for her to recognize and easier for me to recognize. I'm going to go ahead and select all these images, right click, batch rename, job name. Let's change the job name to just say actor head shots. And let's reset the name counter, hit rename. And now you can see everything has been renamed actor headshots 001, 002, 003, all the way down, I guess, to 350 or 349 exactly. So this is going to be easier for her to look at. That way, when I send her the files, she's not looking at some big long string of JPEGs or, you know, a long string .jpeg. So this is just a bit, I don't know, more professional looking, helps me get organized, just nicer to look at. Okay, so now that I've got the images renamed, I got everything cropped. Now what I want to do is spend a little bit of time making some adjustments to all these photos so they just kind of look really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one as kind of my hero pick. And I think our exposure is good. I think the white balance is a little cool for my liking, so I might kind of warm it up a little bit. Maybe actually put in some green. I feel like there's a little bit of magenta. I could white balance this back gray paper, but I've kind of learned through experience, just through my own testing, that this background gray paper is not actually a neutral gray. And so I don't try to white balance to that. But so once I get the white balance accurate, then I might make some adjustments to my own taste. Let's say something like that looks good. Exposure looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my exposure warning. Nothing is clipping. If that was clipping, it would see that red. If it was clipping the shadows, that would be blue. I think I got my exposure pretty nailed in here. Now I might mess around with the skin tone. Now, if Capture One has this really amazing skin tone tool where I can come here, hit my skin tone. Let's go ahead and pick on this. And I think unfortunately the cursor gets messed up when I'm doing screen capture. It should be this little icon here, but anyways, let's go ahead and pick an area of skin that we really like. I'm gonna say this part, maybe here on her neck. Click on that. And you can see it brought up that little patch of skin here. And then I can adjust the hue. So this is gonna be a little bit more kind of the pink. Let's zoom in a little bit. This is gonna be a little bit more pink, a little bit more yellow. I think it actually looks pretty good where it is, but I definitely want to bring the saturation up on her skin, something like that. And then the lightness, I can make it a little bit darker, a little bit lighter. I think it's okay where it's at. But the cool stuff is this uniformity section. And so what this is going to do, so this little dot here, that's that area of skin that we picked. And by moving these uniformity sliders, it's going to take the hue, saturation, and brightness levels and bring those surrounding areas closer to that initial patch of skin that I picked. As an extreme example, I'm going to bring the hue all the way up, and you're going to see it basically kind of shifted her entire skin very similar to that area in her neck, which right now looks a little bit too off. Let's also try the same thing with saturation, go all the way up in saturation. And you can see that like now her skin is super uniform. Right now it's also affecting the lips. I'm going to see if I can isolate where it doesn't affect her lips so much. So if I move this down there, so if it's gray, it's not being affected. Okay, let's try something like that. I'm still missing out on some areas of skin, but that's okay. All right. So you can see like this looks a bit unnatural, but I can adjust these sliders a little bit just to kind of make that skin look a little bit more uniform. So let me go and show you the before. This is the before. And that's the after. Not a huge difference. I'm actually going to bump it up a bit just for YouTube. So that's before, that's after. And you can get this skin dialed in really, really nice. So I really do love the skin tone tool here in Capture One. I do wish I had a vector scope like I've talked about in my Affinity Photo videos, but this gives me a really good starting point. All right, and so let's just for fun for this example, I'm going to go ahead and like change the color of her sweater. I'm going to grab this picker here. Let's grab that blue and let's make it a lot lighter. And let's make it more of like a teal color. Let's bump up that saturation, something like that. All right, that looks pretty cool. I can see it's kind of affecting the background a little bit. Let me go ahead and pull it out of the highlight so it's not. Let's bring this down so it shouldn't be affecting too much. Okay, I think it looks okay. All right, so let's say I like this. Let's say, okay, this is great. I like this. If I wanted to, I can add some contrast to a little classic S curve here, maybe. Pull in the shadows, not too dark. Maybe add some more contrast. I don't know. We can do all kind of stuff. Just bring up the highlights and the levels, something like that. A bit contrasty, but cool. Let's say I like this. All right. So the cool thing is now I can apply this adjustment to all of those photos. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this adjustment here. I'm going to select the photo below it. And let's scroll down to the last shot where she's wearing this sweater. So here, shift and click. And then I'm going to apply that to all of those photos. And boom, just like that, that blue sweater has been changed. Here's the before, here's the after. You can see she has more color in her skin. And these have all been quickly applied to everything. So you can see here, this is a little bit too bright. So sometimes I still have to come in and make a few adjustments. Maybe I was playing around with the lighting here, or it looks like I'm a bit overexposed. But for the most part, I try to get my lighting set and not adjust it so I can just basically apply global adjustments to everything. But that was really quick, right? That was really quick and easy way for me to just go from this to after and apply it across all of the images. Okay, so once I've done that and I got the JPEGs looking as nice as I'd like them to look, now I'm going to export them. So here I have a few different export recipes. So normally what I do is I send them a Google Drive link so they can quickly open up the files on their phone. And so here I have a Google Drive preview recipe. And this is going to go ahead and shrink let's go ahead and select all. Oops. This is going to shrink the file size down to 1600 by 2000 pixels, more than enough to post on Instagram and look really good on your phone, but not that big where it's going to take a long time to load. And then so once I've done that, I would hit export. I would send her all the photos. And then eventually when she gets back to me and says, oh, I really love, number 4, number 1, number, 87, number 126 or whatever, I'll make a note of that. Let's say she really liked number 4. I'd click on number 4. And then here I might come in and spend a little more time. So for example, we changed that color of her shirt, but it was kind of affecting her hair and the background a little bit. So I might actually delete that. And I might actually do that on a brand new layer. Let's just do that really quick. Again, this is not a tutorial. I'm just kind of showing you what you can kind of do here. So something like that. And then with my mask showing, I'm going to go ahead and remove this mask. And I'm just going to very quickly paint in the area I want to be affected, which is this area here in green. And I'm going to fill that in. And I can kind of refine it a little bit just to make it a little bit maybe closer to the edge. Hit apply. There's still some spillage here that I could come over here with the eraser brush tool and kind of clean up. But for this example, we're not going to mess with that. And now I know that this adjustment is just affecting her sweater, and I can tweak it later. I can do all kinds of other things to really make it look really nice. And once I have the images that the client wants or that I like, once they're ready to go, that's when I'm going to export to Affinity Photo. I come over here to my export settings. I have a recipe called Affinity Photo JPEG 8-bit. And then that's going to be the full size JPEG with no compression. And when I hit export, I have it set up to automatically open with Affinity Photo. So when I go to Affinity Photo, boom, it's right there, ready for me to start working. And then I can do my retouch suite and clean up, dodge and burn, all that good stuff. Now you'll notice here I have a JPEG 8-bit because I just export to 8-bit. I know some people feel that you should be exporting to 16-bit TIFF, but through my own testing and experimentation, I really saw no difference. If you are processing the raw file and you're getting that raw file as perfect as you can get it, then you shouldn't need to be doing crazy color adjustments later. Like if I know that I want this sweater to be this color, more than likely I'll do it in Capture One. I know I could do it in Affinity Photo, but there are certain times where if there's not enough color information and you start really pushing colors to the extreme, you might see the image break up, where if you're doing it in the raw step, you're just going to have a lot more flexibility. So by the time this raw image is processed and it's going into Affinity Photo, I'm pretty much 90% there. And so 8-bit JPEG is more than enough information. Plus it's all going to be exported to 8-bit JPEG anyways to be seen on the web. So for me, 8-bit JPEG is fine. 16-bit TIFFs are great, but they just get really, really big. They're big files. And again, like through my testing, I never saw any real difference except for super, super extreme cases, which I would never actually do in reality. So once that's exported and done, I edit in Affinity Photo and, the rest is history or on my channel. Like I said, this was not a tutorial on Capture One. This was just kind of a brief overview of my workflow. If you are interested in learning more about Capture One or my workflow in it, I'd be happy to make videos about it. So just let me know in the comments below. And so should you get Capture One or do I recommend Capture One? That really depends. I think if you're just kind of a hobbyist or an amateur photographer, I think Capture One is a bit overpriced. Like for the work that I do and I need to do, it's perfect, but they've also increased their prices a lot recently. And before you could just buy a lifetime license, now they've moved over to a subscription method. You can still buy a lifetime license, but just for that particular version. So for example, the version I'm using, Capture One 22, it's about 3 years old and it still works perfectly. But I know that at some point when I eventually upgrade my camera, I'm going to have to buy the newer version. And the newer version does have some new tools like AI masking and stuff like that, which I don't have, but it's a bit pricey for me. because I'm doing it in Japanese yen, it comes about almost like $500 for a lifetime license, which is quite expensive. I think especially if you are just a hobbyist. But because I do use this for my professional work, like it's just a necessity. But if you are not a professional or you're not needing this level of control, like what would I recommend if you just wanted to kind of quickly look at your raw files and maybe tag them, delete the ones you don't need, and then bring them into Affinity Photo to process them? Before I was using Capture One, I was using a program called Fast Raw Viewer, and it wasn't a raw processor. It was basically a raw viewer, and it allowed me to quickly look at my raw files. I could star and like tag and rate certain ones. I could delete the ones I didn't need. I could do some basic adjustments, I think, but then I would take those raw files that I liked and open those up into Affinity Photo and then use Affinity Photo's raw processor and then do my normal editing. And that was a really cool program. I think they're still around. I don't have it on my computer anymore because once I started using Capture One, I just didn't use it. But I think if you're just looking for a way to kind of quickly go through all your raw files, maybe star the ones you like, delete the ones you don't like, look at some other there's some other cool features. Check it out. It's called Fast Raw Viewer. I think it was $20 when I bought it. And I would recommend that if you're kind of getting started. I know there are other raw processors. Of course, there's like Adobe Lightroom and a few other programs, but for me and my work, and especially because the tethering is so fantastic with Capture One, I just use Capture One, but it is a bit pricey even for me. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. Again, probably rambling on as the usual, but I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of look into the workflow that happens before my photos get into Affinity Photo. And like I said, if you are interested in learning more, let me know in the comments below and I'd be happy to make a more in-depth video or tutorial about my workflow in Capture One. But until then, guys, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate the support and I will see you in the next video. All right, guys, peace.